Hi there, my name is Leila. I am an animator studying at the University of Michigan, and today I'm going to be telling you about animation. So just like any other art form, the way you could have a drawing that was made with crayons or pencils or markers, different styles of animation are made in different ways. One of the more popular ones right now is 3D animation or computer generated animation. That's a Pixar movie, most DreamWorks movies, things like that. More traditional is 2D animation, which is still really popular with TV cartoons. The third large branch of animation is stop motion animation, which is taking a physical object instead of a drawing or a computer model and moving it bit by bit and taking a picture with a camera every bit.
And my objective here was to find proof of you. My name depends upon it.
Proof? What kind of proof?
Incontrovertible.
So I work primarily in stop motion. I would use a puppet like this. This is my friend Phil, and move him just a little bit each time I want to take a picture each time he moves. And then you can put it together and it looks like he's moving. I pretty much make all of my own puppets. There's a way to do it where you can use metal bits and hardware and stuff, but I tend to take a little bit more of a DIY approach. A different way you can do it, instead of building a metal armature, armature is just a fancy word for skeleton basically. Instead of building one out of metal bits, you can build it out of wire and epoxy putty. So this epoxy putty is hard. It won't bend, but the exposed wire will bend. And this skeleton here is just, the epoxy putty didn't come out quite the way I wanted it to, so I keep them as an example of the proportions you can get and how it works on the inside. So this is what a puppet might look when I first build it. And then you go in and add the outside. So this is the second version of that puppet that didn't work out. He's a robot. He has a little flower. His body and head and his hips here are built from cardboard, and the sides are hot glue. And then his arms are covered in drinking straws that have been painted with nail polish. And the knees are colored in with a Sharpie marker. This works pretty well. This system, this method of making. I have made smaller puppets with this. These are the same method as that, but a little more realistic paint, less detail. The light bulbs don't work. But I've also made cloth covered puppets the same way, and this is 2 used socks with cotton batting underneath, and the legs are covered in gauze like you would use for a cut or an injury. The eyes on this one also are Sharpie colored Scotch tape. You have to get a little bit inventive sometimes. There's lots of things you can do and make, and that brings me to my point. Animation is really cool because it gives you insight on how things move and how things work, and you can tell stories that you wouldn't be able to tell with a static drawing alone. The unfortunate thing is, if you're going to do 3D animation, you need a lot of software and a lot of time to learn that software. And if you want to do 2D animation, you either need the same thing, a lot of software and a lot of time to learn it, or you need a lot of paper and a light box. And both of those are hard to come by naturally. I really like stop motion because you can do it with just about anything, and I really mean that. I have done animations before where I take one of these puppets into the wild and shoot with a moving background. I have done animations before where I have used stuffed animals and drawing models because I didn't have anything else to use. And I've even done animations with things like Post-it notes and things on my desk. I still have classes online, just like you guys do. I was tasked by my stop motion teacher to try to make something that wasn't necessarily a narrative, so just motion, out of anything that I could find in my room. And so on my desk, waiting for me to go and take a walk, was a pair of socks that have a fun little design to look like tennis shoes. So what I did was I took my camera and I set it up, shooting down on my dresser back there, and I made the socks walk. I had to experiment a little bit to make sure that the motion looked correct, you know, the way that a person walks. And this is the cool thing about animation. It makes you think really hard about motion and about how things in the world interact with each other. If I take a step, it's not just up and down. It rolls back, sort of, goes up, waits a minute, and then comes back down, instead of just going up and down. So before all this happened, I was studying abroad in London, and then I had to come home, which really stinks, but I understand why it happened. When I came home, I was sad because I had been taking this little guy, his name is Edison, all over the place in the UK, and I had been traveling with him, taking him on adventures, taking him to tourist spots in London. We went to the London Eye, which is that big Ferris wheel they have in London. We went on the subway. We did all sorts of things together, and I didn't want that to end. So when I came home, I built Filament, or Phil for short. And I have been making an animation with him every single day that I've been home, which is a lot of days at this point. It's over 40 days. I've been doing an animation with him every day in order to show off what you can do while staying home. So it's things like, instead of going places, seeing sights, we've been doing things like playing solitaire. And cooking. And reading books. So my process for one of those videos, I start by setting up my space. I have to, you know, clear off a desk area. I have to set up a tripod. I have 2 tripods that will hold my phone, but I have used things like a stack of books. I make sure all my props are set. So I have lots of props for this guy. Hold on, I'll get some props. Okay. I brought a lot of props. This is one of my favorite things, is making small little objects to make an animation even better. So here is a baking sheet and a little spatula from the video where he made cinnamon rolls. Here is a small squeeze bottle and a piece of cloth from when he cleaned the windows. Here's a little tiny Nintendo Switch playing Animal Crossing for when he played Animal Crossing. And then here is a little laptop computer that he likes to sit and type at. One of the cool things when you're making props, if you decide to make props, is that you can find things to make it seem more real. So for example, I have a bunch of stickers on the back of my laptop. My laptop has a bar at the bottom that has little icons on it. It has a bar at the top that has the same sort of icons and text on it. Animation is really cool because it forces you to observe things, not just motion, like I said, but details like this. Details like the hole at the top of the squeeze bottle, you know, the shape of a squeeze bottle. How do you get it to look convincing? I make some of these out of hot glue and cardboard, but you could cut something just out of cardboard. So after I get my camera set and all the props I need and everything, I shoot the animation. So I get Phil into place with anything he needs, and then I move him just a little bit each time I want him to move, just a tiny bit, and then take a picture. I use an app called Stop Motion Studio Pro. The icon looks like this. You can get the free version. The only difference is that you can take higher quality video with the pro version. But if you're just starting out and just experimenting, that's not as important a feature. It's really handy because it has a feature called onion skinning, which is a popular term in animation. The way that an onion skin, the peel of an onion, is a little bit see-through. You lay 2 frames on top of each other so you can see how they've changed from frame to frame. It allows you to do that, which you wouldn't be able to do just normally on a camera, and it also allows you to retime the sequence, so if you want it to go faster or slower. I shoot 12 frames a second. Typically in animation, there's 24 pictures in 1 second. But what people will do is they will hold a frame for 2 frames. It'll be the same frame twice in a row, and then a new frame twice in a row. So it's virtually 12 frames a second. Very occasionally there will be a 1 frame, which is what makes it 24 frames a second instead of 12 frames a second. It'll be, 2 of the same frame, 2 of the same frame, 1 frame of a different frame, and then a new 2 frames. It's persnickety. It's 12 frames a second. It's 12 new images every second. I would recommend 8 to 12 images a second to make it look like smooth motion. After I shoot all the footage I need to, I import the footage onto my computer and then I start to edit it. So I take out any frames that don't work, and I add sound effects and sometimes music. You can do some of this on the Stop Motion Studio app if you want to. I think you can add sound effects. I haven't tried that one, but I know you can go through and pick out frames that you don't like. Once I edit it, I post it online, and that's it. It's done. My recommendation for you, if you are stuck at home and want to do something fun and creative, is to try this out. You can use anything. Like I've said, I've used a lot of random stuff. You could try to make your own puppet if you have access to wire and things. If you don't, fairly typical and understandable. I didn't have access to these things until I was in college and learned how to use them. You could do paper cutout. So you could build a little puppet out of paper, aim your camera down at a tabletop, and then move the paper around the tabletop. You could do something with an object like my socks or like the things on my desk, where you do the same thing. You shoot sort of down at a tabletop and then move the things bit by bit. You could also use an action figure if you have any action figures. All mine are at my other apartment, which is unfortunate. I have a bunch of Spider-Man and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figures that are great, but they're not here with me right now. You can use action figures that have movable joints, or you can use stuffed animals. Stuffed animals won't move their arms and stuff as well, but you can move them across the table. Or you could try to make your own sort of experiment with it. One of the popular things is using paint on glass. If you might not have glass, but if you have a piece of paper and you add paint to it, you could animate a flower growing, for example. You could do a little bit for the stem, and then a little bit for the stem, and a little bit more for the stem, and then some petals coming off of it. Experiment with it, have fun. Try and make something that looks like motion and that you're excited about. These things don't have to be perfect level, amazing, first try. All animation is an experiment to start with. I am excited to see what sort of stuff you guys come up with, because I love animation. I love making things move. I love seeing things move. So I would love to see what you guys can come up with at home. If you don't have access to a smartphone and you can't use the app, you can try to use, if you have a laptop that has a web camera, you can try and take a picture of yourself moving. That's a form of animation. It's called pixelation, which was named that before pixels existed. You can move yourself a little bit each frame, and then it creates the illusion of motion. Or you could do a flipbook animation, which is when if you had some sticky notes, or if you have note cards, you can draw something on the edge of each of these pieces of paper and then flip through it, and it'll look like something's moving. There are lots of options for you if you want to try animation, and I would really encourage you to try some form of animation, because it is a new way of looking at things. It's a new way of thinking. You have to observe details of objects and of motion, and you get to make something, which is great, you know? Anyway, that is all I have for you today. I might come back in the future and tell you more about how to build stuff or how to animate a little better if you want, but it's just a general overview from me. And yeah, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you have a great day out there. I hope you stay safe and stay well and take care of yourself. All right.